Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Panther Pourri, a Florida Hockey Now podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Langsam. Here with me, as always, are my co-hosts, Alex Lopez and TJ Peterson. And joining us today, a very special guest from ESPN, the one and only Arda Öcal. Arda, how are you doing today?
Gents, happy to be here. I thought you might have invited me because I predicted the Rangers in a sweep, and you guys just wanted to let me hear it, which I am here to also accept. And happy to tell the backstory behind that too, because it wasn't exactly like that, but I did hear about that from Panthers fans. I just want you all to know.
I'm sure we roasted you on our series post view.
Yeah.
We did.
What about that Rangers in 4, guys?
We didn't though, because that's what we do after these series, except for the ones where everybody picks them to win, which fortunately this year there's been 2 of them, so relatively easy going. But I remember that I think that you had Panthers in 6, and you were the only one that had it right.
All right. Let me pull the curtain a little bit here. So I decided, predictions are hilarious, first of all, right? Can we all just agree that we do them because they're fun, but then if someone's wrong, you take them way too seriously just to troll people. So the first round, I picked every series in a sweep. Every single one. just to troll.
Sure I noticed
that.
Yeah, that's a
Go back and look.
bit.
The first round, every single thing is a sweep. And I was going to do that for the whole playoffs. But then a couple people came to me and be like, maybe you should take these a little more seriously. And I was like, all right, fine. I won't, do the bit. So when we were talking on the drop with Wish, he brought it up. He's like, so you're just going to pick the Rangers in a sweep now? And I'm like, yeah, sure, let's commit to the bit. And then that became Panthers fans coming at me oh, so you're going in a sweep against us, huh? We'll see. And then as soon as the Panthers won game 1 3-0, they were like, what happened to that sweep prediction, huh? And it was just you know what, I gotta eat this. I'm okay. So that's why I picked Panthers. It's because I thought the Panthers win the series. I picked them in 6. So what I ended up doing was sweeps for round 1, in 5 for round 2, in 6 for round 3, and in 7 for the final. So I just went up by 1, and nobody really noticed. I just didn't say anything.
Bit.
Yeah.
So I just. But luckily the Panthers won hit, right? So that was perfect.
Got to pick 7 games because ESPN's got the Cup Final this year.
Oh, we would love 7 games, 100%. 100%. But it'd also be great for hockey fans, right? Because it's
not us.
Well, no. Yeah, sorry. It would be great for non-Panthers and Oilers hockey fans. Sorry, let me just be very, very clear.
I'm just pulling your chain.
Well, this is gonna end in a sweep anyway. So you guys will be fine. You guys are just fine. You guys are cruising.
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure Edmonton fans would love 7 games right now.
Yeah, they would take
absolutely. Buddy, you win the first 2 games in the Stanley Cup Final, you're winning the Cup 91% of the time.
Crazy stat. Although I would be interested to see what happens to that stat when your first line center goes down. We still aren't sure what the deal is with that. There hasn't been any official reports. But before we get too deep, Arda, into the Stanley Cup Final talk, there's a more important question that we have for you, because you, Mr. Arda Öcal, are also one of the hosts of ESPN's Never Tell Me the Odds. This is a very Star Wars friendly podcast.
Oh, come
you
forth.
You can see my lightsaber. You can see my lightsaber in the background right there.
Excellent. I'm looking at it right now. Excellent. You'll love to see it. And by the way, this shirt here, for those watching in video, this is the Panthers Star Wars Night collab. Shout out to Adeline and PR, who's one of the best PR people in the entire league.
Oh yeah.
She gives us a lot of great players throughout the year, and she's just fantastic to work with. I just texted her the other day and I said, I have a mock drinking game every time I see her on the air, because she always seems to be sandwiched in a position that she can't get out of during an interview. There was one with, I think it was Matthew Tkachuk, where she was just kind of in the corner and couldn't get out of the shot because there was things blocking her. And I'm like, you are right there, and you are going to be stuck there for the duration of this interview, and you are not going anywhere.
And I think I noticed her going down the tunnel after the first period. On Monday night. Yeah, that was. Yeah.
So anyway,
I don't typically play that game, but I did notice her.
She's terrific. But anyway, shout out to her for sending me this, and I like to collect the Star Wars collabs around the league. So this is the at or the AT, however you want to pronounce it, for the Panthers.
That was going to be my first question: is it at or is it AT?
Dude, I lost this argument with my co-hosts Clint Yates and Ryan McGee. Show's awesome. Kelsey Puckett, our producer, they all believe that it is AT, and I just trolled by saying at, and it just became this whole conversation. I don't know.
I'm team AT.
Yeah,
I'm team AT, but at as a nickname sounds better. I think like the correct pronunciation is AT.
Well, it's an acronym.
It sounds more appropriate. Like at sounds like more work to say. That's the other problem. Like you have to think about saying at. You know, you have to stop for a second at. So I get it.
So I guess the second question, because Alex hijacked the first, is we wanted to kick this off by asking you to rank the Star Wars movies and give us your preferred watch order.
Oh my gosh. The original trilogy, so I'm an 80s kid, so the original trilogy will always have a special place in my heart. So I'm in that zone where the original trilogy, like, this is obviously with nostalgia glasses, okay? Like, I'm looking at it from my own personal journey. The original trilogy obviously was a big part of my childhood, and I cared deeply about it. I did not have the initial vitriol that a lot of people had for the prequels. I appreciated them for what they were. So I was not one of those that was like, oh, this doesn't feel right. And, you know, I was completely cool with them. I've grown to appreciate the sequels even more, watching them more and more. But I have loved the one-off movies. Like Rogue One, I thought was terrific. Even Solo was a lot of fun. Like I look forward to those. And I got to be honest, man, like my favorite character, period, is Grand Admiral Thrawn, like by a mile. So if he's a big part of the
deep cut.
Oh, dude, Thrawn is the absolute best. Like I love the Timothy Zahn books.
I was going to ask if you read the Thrawn book.
Oh, dude,
good.
he's on my bucket list of people I want to meet and just talk to, because Thrawn is such a deep character. Like we could talk about this for hours. I actually did it, not to drop any, like not to be like flexing on people, but like I did a TED Talk in October, and Grand Admiral Thrawn was like a third of my TED Talk. Like hockey was a third of it. And Grand Admiral Thrawn in Star Wars was another third of it. It's very, very random. But my point is, if Thrawn is the main villain, or like one of the main villains in the upcoming Dave Filoni that time era movie, like that Mandalorian era movie, then I might have a new favorite already. Like I'm so pumped for that.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, I was so disappointed when we weren't going to get the Thrawn trilogy as the sequel trilogy. And then they totally redeemed themselves by making him the main bad in Star Wars Rebels. So I was
good.
Yeah.
I still need to finish Rebels. I'm behind on that.
Oh, so good.
I know.
So good. And like we have so many unanswered questions. Like after Ahsoka, you're like, okay, well, what happened after they went to the unknown regions, you know, like to Peridia or wherever they were, in like that 10-year time frame? Like there's just so much, like, I can't wait. There's going to be more Thrawn tent coming up. I'm so pumped for.
That's fantastic. If you haven't trademarked that, you need to, because that's fantastic.
Star Wars comes at me like, hey, we need this back. We're going to use this. Like, what are you doing trademarking our stuff?
I mean,
I wonder if that's taken as a Twitter handle yet.
Oh, good call. Just make it a Thrawn fan account and call it Thrawn tent. Yeah, I like it.
I will say one of my favorite scenes in the entirety of Star Wars is the scene in Rebels, Obi-Wan and Darth Maul's last fight. For as short as that is, it's like a 15-second scene. It is genuinely one of the best lightsaber fights in the entire series.
I love it, but my issue with that fight is I needed Freddie Prinze Jr. to explain it to me. And once he explained it to me in a podcast hit he did, now I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. But in the moment, I didn't get it. And I'm not a gigantic Star Wars fan where it's like, I know everything, where like, you know, someone does a fighting stance and be like, oh, that's Obi-Wan. Oh, that's Luke. That's, you know, Vader. I can't do that. I'm not that much like into it, even though I'd like to be. But like, I needed that fight explained to me by someone who was, and that's how I got to appreciate it. So I get where you're coming from, Jacob, but like, the fact that I needed it explained, like, just kind of takes it down a couple notches.
I will say this though, like Star Wars is very good with catering to all levels of fandom. Like the Easter eggs are in abundance, but even Leslie Headland before the Acolyte, like she created the Acolyte, right? And she essentially said, no homework necessary. You could start from ground zero as a Star Wars fan and you will appreciate this show. And then honestly, like the third episode as we're recording this just dropped, and like the first two episodes were terrific. Like the fight scenes are awesome. You have like Carrie Ann Moss doing like Matrix callbacks. Like it's like the coolest thing. Like I just love the aesthetic of it. Like there's a lot to love about that. And but like to the point though, like you can be a Star Wars fan at any varying degree where you already knew that about you know, you see 100 Easter eggs in an episode of Ahsoka or The Mandalorian and you're getting goosebumps about it, or you just miss them on, you know, hear them after the fact, whatever, you know.
Right.
Yep.
Fun. May the force be with us.
May
the force be with the Florida Panthers. I just want to take a moment.
Beautiful.
I just want to take a moment to, for all the fans that are listening to this right now that are strictly Florida Panthers fans and they are not Star Wars fans and they had to endure us talking like 20 minutes about Star Wars. I'm fine with it. I'm okay with it. I just wanted to you specifically, the Florida Panthers fan that is not a Star Wars fan. Thank you for getting to this point. I promise you we'll talk about Sasha Barkov and Sergei Bobrovsky and everyone else. But thanks for letting us talk about Ahsoka and, you know, the Mandalorian.
I think the particular cross section of our fan base, the people who really listen to us, they get it. They're among us. I mean, the intro to our show, Arda, is the podcast where we're supposed to talk Panthers hockey, but sometimes
you don't.
They are the people who listen to us regularly are. They know the deal.
Terrific.
They know what's going on.
So if you guys go to if there's a game 5, will you guys be throwing womp rats on the ice?
That's a great call.
How have we never made that? Yeah, how have we made that joke in how many years of doing this podcast? That's
season 8.
Yeah. I'm already executive decision when things settle down. We're having Arda on for an off-season podcast where we only talk Star Wars.
Yeah. I'm in.
I'm so down. We'll get Ember to do another video game podcast, Arda to do a full Star Wars podcast, Jameson to do a collectibles podcast. We've got a slate for the summer.
Yeah. Got a whole summer off season. There you go.
Yeah.
So Arda, the Stanley Cup Final. You know, the whole reason we're all here.
You sure? I've heard of
Panthers are up 2-0, and as you mentioned, that is a 91% success rate. We'll say of going on to win the cup. What have you seen from the Panthers in particular that's really allowed them to get to this point? 2 wildly different games stylistically, each ending with the same result. So what have you seen out of the Panthers? What have you seen out of the Oilers? Where do you think we go from here?
Evan Rodriguez essentially stole all of the force from Connor McDavid in this series, scoring 3 goals to the McDavid-Draisaitl combination of having none. What I've seen, this is why I believe that this series could honestly be a sweep, and I don't think people would bat an eye about it. Games 1 and 2 were very different. Game 1, and I want to actually let me even rewind from that. First thing, I know that as fans, we were clamoring for the Stanley Cup Final to start. I loved the extensive break that both teams got because both teams started fresh.
Yeah.
And you could tell they were raring to go in the first period of game 1. Like they looked fast, sharp, and like honestly, as far as Stanley Cup Finals go, like that's what you want. You want the 2 best teams or teams that earned it to be at their best, at the height of their powers, to duke it out, to play for the most beautiful trophy in sports. So I liked that. As a neutral fan, I loved that.
Yeah.
And the Oilers threw their best punch. They won in every statistical category. They outshot, they outchanced, they outhit, they outblocked, they won more faceoffs. They lost 3-0. The Panthers made the most of their opportunities. Sergei Bobrovsky was awesome. The Oilers couldn't solve. Panthers win game 1. But the narrative after game 1 for a lot of hockey fans was, well, hold on. If the Oilers continue to play like that for the rest of the series, then the Panthers are in trouble. So it was almost like a shaky, on thin ice game 1 victory, which you don't often.
Yeah.
That's not often the narrative after a 3-0 victory.
But you're absolutely right. That was a correct narrative. I mean, if you dive a little deeper, you see some things the Panthers did well, especially in the later half of game 1, to kind of not be as one-sided of a game that, you know, you just look at it and say, oh, hey, Bob stole it. I mean, you still absolutely need to credit Bob for shutting out the Oilers and, stopping a bunch of grade A chances. But at least the signs were there that, hey, the Panthers aren't going to get steamrolled the whole series and need to steal 4 games to win
Sure.
it. It was, we were talking about it is the Panthers aren't going to play this bad again. Like they're not going to make the sloppy mistakes they made in game 1 and game 2. They didn't.
No, they was the complete opposite. They played amazing. They won in every statistical category, and they took it to the Oilers. The Oilers couldn't. They scored on the first goal on a soft goal. Sergei Bobrovsky's first 5-hole goal this postseason, right? Like he hasn't let in a goal in the 5-hole, I believe, this whole postseason, and then
I don't think
finally lets one in. He's let in the majority of his goals high. That was the other thing. In game 1, the Oilers they did not get a high shot on goal. They missed the net a few times high, but they did not register a high shot on goal. And in fact, those 2 breakaways were, I think it was left pad on Bobrovsky, and he made the identical save on those 2 breakaways. I think it was in the first, right? So in game 2, the Panthers just made the most of the opportunities that they had. And it's kind of funny. So do you remember in the Rangers series where Zibanejad had that chance? I think it was in game 3 where he hit the crossbar. And a lot of Rangers game 4. Sorry. Thank you, Alex. So game 4, a lot of Rangers fans told me after that, they felt that was the turning point. And they even said it before the series was over. They were like, to us, that's when the powers of the Rangers sort of escaped their bodies. It was like that was the turning point of the series, or sort of like we don't believe the Rangers will get out of this anymore kind of thing. And to me, you could make the same case for that McDavid breakaway, because he beat out Matthew Tkachuk. Okay, he outmaneuvered him, got the puck, and couldn't solve Bobrovsky.
Let me ask you, staying there for a second, because I've seen a lot of Oilers fans complaining that should have been a hooking penalty/penalty shot. I've watched that play 1,000 times, and it was a bit unorthodox with Tkachuk literally sticking his stick in between McDavid's legs to kind of try to put a clamp on McDavid's stick. I didn't see a hooking there. He doesn't get the hands. He gets right in the middle of the shaft and pushes down on the stick. That's not hooking. That's a good stick check, in my view. But you're the neutral observer, even though you're in a Panthers shirt for the night. What did you think on that?
I'm pandering. Okay, this is called cheap heat. I'm pandering to the crowd. All right, people. I also love the shirt. I did not see it as a hook. I didn't study it. I didn't watch it 100 times. To be very, very clear, I did not see it as a hook. I will say this, though. If McDavid went down, I think it would have been a different call.
Yeah.
He probably would have gotten a penalty shot if the stick was between the legs and McDavid went down. And I'm not saying whether it was a legitimate trip or whether it was I don't think McDavid is the type to embellish, but let's just say he fell.
He gets the superstar call there.
Whatever. You would say in that moment, referees either pointing to the center ice or a power play.
There was a similar moment in game 1 also where I think it was Zach Hyman with Ekblad defending him, where it looked like Ekblad did get the stick in, and had Hyman gone down before he attempted the shot, I think there would have been a hooking call there too. It was a similar moment, but 2 different players. So a very interesting, good on the Oilers for not just taking the easy dives, and good on the Panthers for playing strong enough defense in those situations where you can't necessarily just make those calls, obviously, and you're preventing the goals from happening. You're actually disrupting the shot attempts with your stick. That's the type of defense the Panthers have been playing all season also. That stick first, check second style, led by Barkov specifically.
Should we get into Barkov? Speaking of referee, speaking of plays, this is what I'd like to say about this. Leon Draisaitl got less of a punishment than Joey Chestnut did today.
Apparently, he's not out of the competition just yet. they're saying like, no, we actually do want him, and they're trying to work it out because if Joey Chestnut is
No,
not
because
there.
he accepted sponsorship from a rival brand.
Yep.
And the fourth of the Nathan's hot dog eating contest committee, or the people, they will not have Joey Chestnut compete so long as he is still representing that other brand. So
we get the live golf for the hot dog eating contest going on right now.
Basically.
It's the craziest situation there. Unbelievable.
It is Joey Chestnut, though. Like, you can't have it without Joey Chestnut. I'm sorry.
It's true. He's the GOAT. He's the LeBron. Yeah. He's the Michael Jordan, the LeBron James, the Connor McDavid, the Wayne Gretzky.
Then again, we
had the Sasha Barkov,
the Evan Rodriguez,
the Sasha Barkov. The Evan Rodriguez of hot dog eating. That's right. Yes.
However, we did say the same thing when Takuro Kobayashi was banned from the contest, and it survived. Joey Chestnut arrived, and
that's true. Like it did take a while, but he did go on in a magical run. What I want? Yeah, okay, sorry. Last tangent. They should just have now that if he's not going to be in the fine fair. If he's not in the if he's not in the July 4th. I know that Kobayashi just retired. Just unretire for one specialty matchup. Just one more. A retirement match between Joey Chestnut and Kobayashi. Put them on stage together and let them have one last, GOAT versus GOAT. The war, the war to settle the score. This is it. This definitively puts the championship on one GOAT. Would be the Jordan and LeBron. Yeah, the Jordan versus LeBron of hot dog eating. And there would be a definitive answer after this.
You know what that would remind me of in hockey is when Peter Nedved unretired to play against Jaromir Jagr's Kladno in I think it was the second division of the Czech Republic Hockey League. That was like an epic game. It was like 8-6, and Jagr had like 5 points, and Nedved had 3 points, having just unretired.
Mm-hmm.
That was amazing, and I think that we would get that pretty much.
I love it. But yeah, that's what I would do. That's exactly what I would do.
So Sasha Barkov.
Boys, Leon leaves his feet. His elbow hits Sasha's face. Sasha goes down. Sasha, we don't know if he's going to play for the next game, let alone the rest of the series. We don't know. But Leon does not get anything other than a minor penalty. I understand it's the Stanley Cup Final. I understand that the stakes are very high. And I've also seen the narrative that Draisaitl is clearly the second most important player on the Oilers roster. So to take him out of the lineup would, disrupt the integrity of the Stanley Cup Final. It would hurt the Oilers very much.
Yeah.
But so would Barkov. Like that the fact is that if we're trying to get these kind of hits out of the game, then there needs to be accountability. And to me, all of those things, even if you're making the case, I'm not making the case. If you're making the case that it wasn't a deliberate hit, he left his feet, elbow hits the face, player is injured, didn't return to the game. Now, it was late in the third, so maybe he was going through concussion protocol and it would have taken too much time for him to come back to the game. But Paul Maurice said after the game, he's like, look, I'm not holding the guy back. Like, we were down 2-1, right? Like, I'm not going to hold the player back. We need him. I mean, those are my thoughts.
You basically made all of our argument that we talked about last night and on social media. You said exactly what it is. We all think is that, hey, there's not a suspension because it's Leon Draisaitl, who's the second most important player on the team, down 2-0 in the Cup Final. If Cody Ceci, even though he didn't play, if Cody Ceci is the one laying that hit, it's a suspension. Like he's out the rest of the series, and because you just took out the number one player on your opponent. Maybe I'm being a bit hyperbolic with saying it's the rest of the series, but there is a suspension. In my mind, there's no doubt in my mind that the fact that it's Leon Draisaitl, the fact that it's the Cup Final, the fact that the Oilers are down 2-0 changed the math. Now, should it have? Absolutely not. It's ridiculous, honestly. Like the Panther, not you were saying 91% of the teams up 2-0 in the Stanley Cup Final go on to win. Well, that math changes when your best player, your Selke Trophy winner, your Conn Smythe favorite player,
the guy you can rely on to shut down Connor McDavid,
is now possibly out for game 3 and maybe longer. They haven't said what it is, but if you listen to Paul Maurice in his press conference today, He basically said concussion protocol without using the words concussion protocol.
Yeah, and the reason just to be clear, the reason I said it was if he were to go into, we don't know the answer. So if he had gone into concussion protocol, Ray Ferraro talked about this on the broadcast, the process would have taken 10 to 15 minutes to go through the protocol. So at that point in the game, if he was in protocol, he probably wouldn't have had the time to return to a game that ended in regulation.
Right.
So
I mean, I will say Paul Maurice's last update on the matter did seem vaguely promising, all things considered.
They're not going to give away state secrets at this point, but he kind of just did want to say, like, they're not going to really tell us anything. Actions will show us something. We're going to see tomorrow night or tomorrow afternoon, maybe morning. I'm not sure if he practices. And then if he doesn't practice, we're going to see if he travels. Yeah. And that will definitely give us an indication. I would be pretty surprised if he practiced and then did not travel. But, you know, I guess the stranger things have happened. Like Evan Rodriguez having 3 goals in the Cup final and nobody else having 2. But
the Panthers defense have 2.
It's true.
Panthers defense have 2, and the Oilers superstars have none. Now, here's the other thing with Leon, though, is that like he's experienced the other side of this too, where which playoff was it where he was playing with a compromised leg? Was it ankle or
I think it was 2 years ago. Yes.
Yeah.
I think it was.
So they were hacking and just like absolute. Like he literally had to change the way he played the game on the fly because his leg was so compromised. Like it was a really, really rough situation for him in that series. So he's definitely seen that side of it too, right? Like where he's been, targeted. And
I don't think it was intentional. I will say that much as far as, he's been on the other side of it. I don't think he was trying to injure Barkov.
I don't think so either. I agree. But the fact is it happened though. Like the thing is like, unfortunate. Like here's the thing. It's like a high sticking penalty to me, right?
Yeah.
There have been a lot of high sticking penalties these playoffs where it just kind of looked careless. Like the player, like if you're watching on video right now, like the player just sort of
on Monday.
Where it just like it just looked like the player just loses control of their stick or just doesn't have the perception of where the stick is going and it accidentally hits a player in the face. And you're just like, that did not look like an intentional. Rarely are they ever intentional, but like sometimes it's like it looks like, oh, an NHL player should have control of their stick in that moment or something to that effect. It looks just wild. So we've seen a lot of that in this postseason.
Yeah, I think when you combine all the things you already said, he left his feet, he extended his elbow, and made clean contact with the jaw. Like it all amounts up to something that is an obvious suspension in any other situation than the one we're in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, Arda, the natural follow-up question to all of that becomes, with the pieces remaining on the board, should Barkov not play at least game 3? How do the Panthers follow that up? How do you defend Connor McDavid without your Selke winner? If you're the Panthers, what do you do in this situation to account for that loss?
The Panthers in game 2 across the board did a great job of preventing a lot of passes into the middle of the ice in the Oilers offensive zone. They did a great job with that. I think other than the McDavid breakaway, how many high danger chances did the Oilers have in game 2?
Literally 0. That was the only one of the game. Like you could not have made that point better. You picked out the literal one high danger chance they had. I looked it up.
I mean, there you go. So like it's look, Sasha Barkov is the best 200-foot player in the game, right? But also Connor McDavid is the best player in the game, and it's a team game. So I'm pretty confident that Paul Maurice will be able to devise a scheme and a system with the amount of depth that the Panthers have to be able to find a way to confine McDavid and Draisaitl and quite frankly the rest of the team because they've found success in doing that. To me it's funny. It's not even like the biggest thing for the Oilers coming into this series, I thought was Stuart Skinner. If he's average Stuart Skinner, the Panthers would just, completely feast on the Oilers. If you get an average or worse Stuart Skinner, because there's like the Jekyll and Hyde of Stuart Skinners, right? Before the benching, after the benching, he was amazing. And if you get that Stuart Skinner, then the Oilers have a chance. If you don't, then the Panthers will just be way too much because they have too much offensive firepower, right? But this hasn't been on Stuart Skinner. It's been on a lot of things. Game 1, people were talking about Cody Ceci and Darnell Nurse and how they were on the ice for both of the non-empty net goals. And that Sam Bennett literally like dumping and chasing it himself and beating the entire team and making a great pass in front. Like, that doesn't often happen, right?
To Evan Rodriguez.
To Erod, the man
They
himself.
nearly flipped it in game 3 or
They
game
did
2 as well. Almost.
Yeah, unbelievable. So, but and then, making the changes that the Oilers didn't work. Panthers still come out strong. So game 3 to me is going to be very, very important. If the Oilers are going to have a raucous crowd, it's going to be super loud in there. It's going to be sold out. The mosh pit's going to be rocking. Like, it's going to be a crazy environment and a really tough one for the Panthers. The Panthers win that one, even if it's a close one, Like, either the Oilers are winning 5-1 or the Panthers are winning in like overtime, and that'll be it. Then game 4 is like 6-0 and, get ready to raise the cup.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. That's what it feels like.
Pivotal game 4 territory here, pivotal game 5. Everybody always says that. But I feel like you're right that a team that has very consistently been at its best in the third period, you're probably not looking at that team as being vulnerable to dropping a 3-0 series lead. So the Oilers probably got to do something serious in this next game, especially because we're probably going to see the worst version of Barkov we've seen in this series. Maybe that means he's completely invisible. Oh, God, what a terrible game for him. He's making no impact, blah, blah, blah. But I want to kind of make the argument here that it's not as significant as I initially thought, maybe just me, because we're going now to Edmonton, where Chris Knobloch is going to have last change. And something that I'm sure that he would have been hyper-focused about in this matchup where everybody that was healthy in game 1 would be, how do I make sure that I get Connor McDavid out there for as many minutes as I can where he's not being covered by Sasha Barkov? So now that's just going to happen. He probably had all these recipes to cook up McDavid minutes against Bennett, Lundell, or Stenley. And now that's probably just going to happen. So it's something that would have already happened. And I think that they've had success without Barkov, despite how pivotal he is to what they do. He's also not the most, reliable guy in terms of playing 82 games a year. I don't think he's done it in his career. Maybe he has, but certainly hasn't done it in the last few years. And they still have won games with him out of the lineup. I believe they have a winning record. And also, we have seen him with the Cage this year. NCAA Barkov was something special.
Bubble Barkov, TJ.
Bubble Barkov.
And the thing you're missing, TJ, is Gustav Forsling still exists in the world. I mean, as great as Barkov has been against McDavid, he's been just as good.
And he could play more minutes.
Dude, PK called him maybe the best defenseman in the league right now. Like, that's high praise.
From a Norris winner.
From a Norris Trophy winner, but also, like, who saw that coming? Did you guys, as Panthers fans, did you see this coming?
Not this.
As someone who also followed the Blackhawks when I was younger, and knew, the 8 games that Forsling had played for them. No, I never could have seen Forsling becoming a bona fide first pairing defenseman. Just another in a series of phenomenal diamonds in the rough by Bill Zito and his staff.
And that just goes to show you, like, goaltending depth wins cups. They always say that, right? Yeah. But, like, to me, it's like you either have to have rookies or people or players on like entry level deals that are playing like to 10 times their salary, like they're getting paid 900,000 but they're worth 9 million kind of thing. Like Dallas had a couple of those, right, with Wyatt Johnston and Logan Stankoven, for example, right?
Jason Robertson.
Like players that you're just like, wow, like they're outplaying their contracts right now. or you need these revelatory players. Like the Rangers had Lafreniere, who had like amazing postseason. Gustav Forsling is the perfect example for the Panthers. Like there's just players like that.
Swaggy.
Or for Hagee, like just amazing. Or as long as Nico Mikkola shoots on Bobrovsky, then scores, then plan the parade.
I mean, if there wasn't a sign in the world that this is the Panthers' year, it was that 13 seconds where Nico Mikkola goes from potentially being on an all-time, ESPN not top 10, scoring on his own net in a Stanley Cup final to scoring on the correct net literally 13 seconds later. Like,
what was your reaction to that shot?
I literally said, "Oh shit!" Like in the arena, like I saw Mikkola backhand, and I was like screaming "shit, fuck," like everything. And because like I'm a goalie, like I saw that happen, I'm like, well, I'm not expecting this is disaster. Yeah. And then it doesn't go in, and then they rush down the ice, and obviously you can, guess what happened next.
Y'all want a fun stat about Nico Mikkola?
Always.
He's got 5 goals this season, regular season plus playoffs, 3 against Edmonton.
I was going to say how many against the Oilers.
That's correct.
There it is.
He had a 2-goal game against Edmonton the regular season this year. Connor McDavid scored twice too, so it was like, man, the 2 greatest scorers in the league going at it, McDavid and Nico Mikkola.
Wait, was one of those goals, one of those Mikkola goals, that like hilarious sequence where the puck bounced off of someone and Oilers stick on the ice?
Broberg's.
It was Broberg's stick.
Oh, man.
That was the most like Benny Hill goal I've ever seen in my life.
They don't ask how, they ask how many.
That's exactly right. And the answer is 5, 3 of them against the team they're playing in the Cup Final.
One last Oilers related question for you, Arda, as we try to wrap up. TJ was just touching on it, how the Oilers have to find a way to get McDavid and Draisaitl easier matchups. But I feel like that's the only adjustment they've tried to make so far is let's just put McDavid and Draisaitl on the ice as much as possible. I mean, he played 25 minutes on Monday night.
Yep. And
the highest Panther, I think, was Forsling at 20. Like, does Knoblauch have anything else in the bag, or is it just going to be, hey, McDavid and Draisaitl, get out there every 30 seconds and make something for me?
Well, they're the 2 best players, so you hope that they would activate in some way. They have to in order for the Oilers to get back into this series. It's just not going to work otherwise. But Chris Knoblauch has had a great postseason, like Stuart Skinner activating him after sitting him and playing Calvin Pickard for a couple games just to give him a reset. It absolutely worked. He split up CC and Nurse in game 2. Like he's been tweaking the lines. Adam Henrique went to the second line. He brought in Sam Carrick for Corey Perry. Like he's been trying he's trying to shuffle. He's trying to figure out what works. But honestly, guys, this is what I said about this series coming in. If McDavid and Draisaitl were at the height of their powers and the height of their production, and Stuart Skinner was great, that team can beat a on par Florida Panthers team.
Yeah.
But the Florida Panthers, probably 80 games out of 100, could beat the Edmonton Oilers with their depth and Sergei Bobrovsky if all the players played to what you would expect them to play. But a lot of players are out kicking their coverage right now. Like they're playing well beyond what you would expect, and that's a good thing for the Panthers. They just have too much. They have too many pieces. They have too many players that can contribute. Evan Rodriguez is the perfect example of that. Like there's too many players that the Oilers have to try and contain, and they don't have the depth to match. And so, to answer the question directly, we're gonna have to see if the lines are shuffled again. We're gonna have to see if that last change will benefit and how McDavid and Draisaitl will be deployed. I loved Knoblauch pulling the goaltender with 5 minutes to go.
Yes.
Me too.
Because the Oilers are the best. The Oilers are the absolute best man advantage team in NHL history. So might as well take advantage of it, right? Didn't work out, but I thought it was a smart move.
Yeah.
So those are my thoughts about that.
The limited data we have for that particular instance, It limited because coaches are so timid about pulling goalies super early. But the data shows that the earlier you pull your goalie, the more likely you are to score. So I think it's a very welcome change to see a coach like Knobloch, and a younger guy, a newer guy behind the bench, to do that.
Yeah.
Because it's always the younger coaches who cause these paradigm shifts in the league, and that's one that I think will create a more exciting on ice product.
Yeah, just to put a bow on it, he created a 5-on-4 in a situation where the Panthers could not ice the puck. Or, I mean, you could, but it
because it was a 4-on-4. Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, that was absolutely the right play, and it needs to happen more often.
Yeah. Arda, I have one final question for you here as we come to the end of our wonderful show. Should the Panthers hit on this 91% chance that they have to win the cup historically? There are a lot of very fun, great, interesting, heartfelt, whatever storylines for the players across this Panthers roster. Who are you most excited to see lift the Stanley Cup on the Panthers roster specifically?
Paul Maurice, number one, easily, by far. He's been highly entertaining all postseason. He's very honest, earnest, heartfelt with his answers, and thorough and thoughtful. I also love that his son is broadcaster with the Everblades, who just won the Kelly Cup for the third straight time. And I love the joke about how he's been a broadcaster for a couple of years. Already has 2 rings.
2 years.
But the reason I bring that up is I just love the Paul Maurice taking the time to say, if it was my kid asking an NHL coach a question and the NHL coach was a jerk in an answer, I wouldn't like it as a dad. So I try to not do that as much as possible, despite that position being an absolute pressure cooker and, everything that you have to deal with. So I appreciate that very much coming from Paul Maurice.
Yeah.
In terms of players on the ice, I like that Kyle Okposo will finally get a cup. He's probably we love the players been around forever and finally get to raise a cup. Like
Maurice and Okposo are the exact
same. Kyle
thing.
Okposo's that guy now.
He's that. I know. The Stars had a few of them too, right? Like they had was it Ryan Suter, Matt Duchene, Joe Pavelski.
Pavelski.
But let me throw this back to you guys though. If the Panthers win the cup, will the Matthew Tkachuk celebration surpass the Alex Ovechkin celebration?
No, because I
don't think so.
It's not possible.
It's not possible.
Ovi waited so long to lift that cup. I don't think it. Yeah.
So you think it's a longevity thing?
I think that plays a huge factor in
think so.
For being the greatest goal scorer of a generation and having to wait, what was it, 12, 13 years to finally win a cup. That celebration is unmatched. I mean, even Gary Bettman's little monologue leading up to it, where he said, it was something along the lines of, Alexander Ovechkin, you are finally a Stanley Cup champion. Like everything surrounding Ovi skating up to and lifting the cup was just NHL iconic.
There's going to be no Matthew Tkachuk fountains or anything like that.
No, that I don't think we're getting. But I think that him on the ice after the cup final might surpass it. The celebration outside of the arena won't.
Okay.
Because I think at the parade, if they hit on the 91% chance, of course, he'll go on the stage at the parade and he'll say, this is going to be so much sweeter when we win it again next year. Something along those lines. That's the kind of guy he is.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there will be a party. I think it'll be great, but it's going to be like, hey, we're just going to be at the elbow room until
No, they're going to American
straight
Social.
hours.
They're going to American Social.
Okay, American Social, elbow room, even though I know Tkachuk likes elbow room.
They're going to Las Olas.
He literally wore an elbow room shirt on, was it NBA Countdown?
Know.
Yes. But,
unbelievable. Unbelievable.
So
you're saying that Matthew Tkachuk at the parade on stage will party less than David Pastrnak winning the world championship in Czechia? Because David Pastrnak was out living his best life.
I don't think I actually saw any of
you
those
gotta look that up.
celebrations.
It was
You gotta
pretty
look that
good.
up.
That'll be my
good.
homework.
He was loving life. It was awesome. He was the happiest hockey player in the world for like a week.
Yeah. I think it's going to be very smug on that stage.
Oh,
very smug.
for sure. Smug is the correct word.
Who are your guys? Like who are you most happy if the 91% hits to go along with that? Like who are whose cup raiser you're looking forward to the most?
I have like 5 answers. Like Paul Maurice. I'm so glad you led with Paul Maurice because that would have been my first answer.
Yes.
You know, he's the losingest head coach of all time, but he's also among the winningest head coaches of all time because he's just been around forever and he's come so close so many times. And now he's almost ready to taste it. Maurice is such a great answer. Barkov and Ekblad. I kind of pair Barkov and Ekblad because they're the same reason. You know, they're the homegrown kids who have been around for a decade plus. You know, this is Ekblad's 10th season, Barkov's 11th. They're the core, the heart and soul of this team and have been for a long time. And to see them win with the Panthers will just be so rewarding. And then Okposo for the same reasons. And finally, the one player that I'm really looking for, the player that I think is honestly most likely to cry as he lifts the cup, Sergei Bobrovsky.
And I will go completely on brand and stay. Number 1 is Bob.
Yeah.
2, I'm gonna go a bit outside the outside the grain and say Luongo.
Yeah.
Because you know
I forgot that Luongo gets to play here.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, we're gonna use Maurice.
Actually, and I'm looking forward to the Luongo tweet after he wins the cup and what joke he's got. That's going to be pretty funny.
That would be great.
He's got to be something.
A face reveal. That's going to be the joke. He's going to post a picture of himself holding the cup.
He's going to say, I practiced doing this 14 years ago. Now I finally get to.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. I practiced this between games 3 and 4 in 2011 for 2 hours, and I can finally put it to Hey,
that never happened, by the way. That never happened.
Oh, God, no. Of course it didn't. Can I say a really quick Luongo story? Just really quick.
Please.
So I actually, one of the gigs that I had before I got to ESPN was I worked for the Canada version of the Weather Channel. Very random. In Canada, it's called the Weather Network. And I worked in Vancouver. So when I got the job, I went through training. And one of the things they did was they showed me that clip. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it's of a weather report, and the weather reporter is doing streeters, and they happen to find Roberto Luongo, not knowing it's Roberto Luongo, and they just do a streeter on the weather, and Roberto Luongo is there, no name, key, nothing, just like as if it's just a general Vancouver citizen.
No Chiron.
Nothing, just talking about the weather. And
that's amazing.
They show me the clip. And at the end of it, they're like, don't do that.
I don't think that would have been a problem for you.
Yeah. I did reach out to the Canucks to try and recreate that, but I couldn't get it done, which is a shame. That would have been funny. But
he'd do it now.
He absolutely would.
I've got the clip ready to play. As soon as we're done recording, I'm going to watch this.
Yeah. It's pretty funny. I think Jerome McGinley has one like that in Boston too. Very similar, where the reporter just didn't know it was Jerome McGinley. But anyway.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and didn't we have the Blackhawks GM at the draft, like I think a year ago?
Oh, yeah, doing a random bit on the
Yeah,
on the
that's
draft.
right.
Kyle Davidson.
That's right. Kyle Davidson was doing. Yeah.
Oh, jeez. All right,
TJ, I don't think you've given your answer.
You know, everybody that you've said is very high on my list. Here's another one that is even more obscure than Alex's, and if he had this position, I think that he would be doing it. You always talk about the guys that have been on the team the longest. Rob Tallis has been here forever.
Oh, wow.
Been through so much.
That's true. Tallis has been through a bunch of GMs, even more coaches.
That was
Talk about a stalwart of the staff. Yeah.
That was my third person, but we didn't get there because, you know, we got sidetracked talking about Luongo. But yeah, he's been here the longest. He's been like, the fan base has wanted him fired 1,000 different times. And, you know,
us included, like, we have to take our lumps.
I never said that. I've always been a Rob Tallis fan, but
I definitely,
I went with the flow on that one.
All right. I'm gonna try and land this plane because we've taken way too much of your time, Arda.
All good, all good.
Plug your stuff. Where can everyone find you? What do you got coming out soon other than this podcast?
Well, for the rest of the Cup Final, we're doing lives on the NHL ESPN TikTok. So come hang out 6:30 Eastern. Yeah, so right before the point, we just hang out for half hour, just to talk. A lot of people asking. It's kind of funny. It's like half people asking about the Cup Final, but then the other half is, so what's going to happen to my team in the offseason? Like it's very varied based on, hockey fans, which is cool. So that, and then in the crease after the games on ESPN Plus, and then the drop with me and Wyshynski afterwards. We just posted on our YouTube channel and wherever you get your audio podcast. But that's really it, boys. Thanks for having me. I'll happily come back on in the off season when you guys all have cup rings and we can talk about Star Wars for 2 hours, and you can let me know how the parade was. And do you guys get a float on the parade? Like, do you guys follow in your cars? Like, how does this work?
We will have absolutely no presence at the parade outside of as fans.
Let me trail it on my.
Speak for yourself. No presence, my ass. I'll be there.
Well, if Adeline lets me, and we all know how great she is, so I think I got a chance. I'm going to trail the parade on my bike. Not that we know what's going to happen. It's 2-0. I haven't practiced lifting the cup yet. But
we are treading in very dangerous territory by talking about the parade.
Oh my God. Yeah.
We are, I know. But at this point, the plan the parade jokes have to start becoming real at some point. And up 2-0 in the final.
That was a plan the parade joke, though. That was a joke for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can see me cringing. The goalie superstition in me is absolutely horrified at this entire conversation.
You'd hate watching games with me then, because like the Panthers would go up 1-0 5 minutes into the first period, and I turn to be like, man, Bobrovsky shutout.
Oh, I'd murder you. I'd murder you.
5 minutes in.
Look, it worked in game 1.
Exactly. See, I was right. 5 minutes into the game.
My dad mentioned it as we were walking into the stadium, and I almost told him to go home.
Oh, goodness.
That's good.
Speaking of superstitions, I do want to remind people that the Penguins touched the Prince of Wales, which is the one that the Eastern Conference wins.
Prince of Wales.
They touched it. Nashville didn't touch the trophy that year. We all know how that ended. So come on, some superstitions are just dumb.
But also Paul Maurice, well, actually, was it to Barkov, where Barkov was Paul Maurice told him not to touch it for 2 years in a row. And they touched it.
Last year, Barkov cradled that thing.
Yeah.
After
not this year.
They decided to touch it. Yeah, but you had to do something different. You had to
not this year. Not this year.
That might make the
difference.
difference.
No thanks.
They just got that no touching the trophy mentality. It's built different, etc.
Yeah.
All right. So, folks, where are they rating us 5 stars?
Oh boy. Rate us 5 stars on just rate us 5 stars on the ESPN app while we've got Arda on the show.
Wherever you get the podcasts on YouTube, wherever. Hey, this was fun, boys. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the time. It was thanks for the invite. I had fun.
Thank you,
Arda, you've been more than generous with your time. Thanks so much for coming on.